On News Hour tonight, contractors go bankrupt over 3 trillion naira federal debt. Federal government blames foreign lobbyists for fueling Christian genocide narrative. Resident doctors vow to continue strike until demands are met. On the foreign scene, Cameroon security forces killed 48 in election protests. Hello and welcome to News Hour on Trust TV. I am Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. Despite the financial windfall from fuel subsidy removal and massive government borrowings, Nigeria's indigenous contractors say the construction sector, the country's traditional economic stimulator, is being crippled by neglect. They claim the federal government owes them over 3 trillion naira, a debt that has stalled infrastructure projects and left thousands of workers without pay. The protest, which forced the House of Representatives to suspend plenary for a week, reflects growing frustration over what many see as misplaced fiscal priorities in the midst of record government revenue and borrowings. Trust TV's Ibrahim Ismail now reports.
For the second time this week, members of the Indigenous Contractors Association of Nigeria blocked the main entrance to the National Assembly in protest over unpaid contract funds for projects executed in 2024. The contractors say they are left with no option but to occupy the National Assembly until their money is paid. They accuse the government of neglect and bad faith, insisting that many of them are sinking under debt after completing projects for federal agencies. Some, like Jibrin Dagi, say they have had to lay off workers after a month of waiting for payment that never came.
How will you hold somebody for 9-10 months without not paying him? You have other staffs that are working with you that you are going to pay, and they didn't pay you. How do you do? How do you survive? I have not less than 50 staffs in my company. I sacked some of them because I don't receive paid.
Others like Adebola Benson described the situation as unfair, warning that the continued delay is pushing small firms into bankruptcy.
So because of this, we've lost a lot of our properties to banks. Many of us are just hiding because banks, as we speak now, banks are waiting for some of our members at home just to grab them and take them to station or arrest them and harass them. So these are the things. Some of them cannot even pay school fees. Some of them cannot even pay their own grant rent that the minister himself is asking for.
Despite rising debts, the federal government continues to boast of improved revenue. In September, President Bola Tinubu said Nigeria had already met its 2025 revenue target.
We have met our target of revenue for the whole year. We met it in August. I've reviewed this morning. Non-oil.
Yet, just this week, he asked the Senate to approve another 1.15 trillion naira domestic loan barely 6 days after getting approval for a $2.3 billion external borrowing. That move has infuriated the Contractors Association.
By the weekend, we are writing to all embassies, starting from American Embassy, UK, Germany, China, Canada. We are writing officially to all of them. IMF, World Bank, places where Nigeria goes to borrow money. Let us tell them that the money they are borrowing, they are not using it for the proper projects. That is what will start by next week. And we are ready to the last. No going back.
Legal experts like Akula Kendo argue that the government's failure to pay verified debt violates contract laws.
We are ready to take on every legal method necessary to ensure that we get our money. We are merely demanding for a completion of our agreements. They have played their part, they are incurring liabilities. Furthermore, long term from here today, there are so many ripple effects that will affect not just them, but those that they have employed in their services. So stopping is not even an option. The government will have to meet up with the demands of the indigenous contractors of this country.
In the 2024 national budget, 9.99 trillion naira was allocated for capital projects out of 28.78 trillion naira total spending. But with over 3 trillion naira still owed to contractors, questions remain about how the government is managing its capital expenditure and why those who built the projects are the ones now going broke. Ibrahim Ismail, Trust TV News, Abuja.
The federal government has accused foreign lobbies, particularly in the United States, of orchestrating and spreading claims of a so-called Christian genocide in Nigeria to distort the country's security realities. Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, stated this and made this allegation at a press conference in Abuja on Wednesday, saying government findings revealed a deliberate effort to misrepresent Nigeria's internal security challenges. His remarks follow the United States government's recognition of Nigeria as a country of particular concern over alleged persecution and mass killings of Christians, in a position Abuja has firmly rejected. Mohammed Idris maintained that while insecurity remains a serious issue, there is no evidence that any religious group is being systematically targeted.
The hope of the administration is that this will stimulate rural economic independence and also interdependence among people. This, of course, is intended to provide that soft, non-kinetic approach to ensure that issues of terrorism, extremism related to these conflicts are addressed once and for all. The recent change in service chiefs by the president, which, by the way, happened even before this designation by the United States of America, and the subsequent realignment within the armed forces of Nigeria and other security agencies reflect President Bola Tinubu's determination to reinvigorate Nigeria's security architecture. This strategic overhaul is designed to infuse fresh energy, innovation, and accountability into our national defense and intelligence systems.
Meanwhile, reactions are growing over the United States' designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern and President Donald Trump's threat of possible intervention. A group, Rebuild Arewa Initiative for Development, has rejected what it called a false genocide claim, urging the Trump administration to back Nigeria with intelligence and logistics support instead of threats. At a media conference in Abuja, the group's spokesperson, Bitako Umar, said branding Nigeria on the pretext of religious persecution will only deepen regional and religious divisions within the country.
We have for years worked to promote peace, unity, and development across our communities. We have witnessed and documented the realities on ground, and we state clearly and unequivocally that Trump and his senators' claim do not represent the truth about Nigeria scenario. What is happening in our country, especially in the north, is not genocide. It is a complex crisis driven by insecurity, poverty, terrorism, and the collapse of social and economic structures. Our people, both Christians and Muslims, are victims of the same violence. Bandits do not ask for religion before they kill or kidnap. Boko Haram has slaughtered imams and pastors alike. Farmers and traders of all faiths have suffered the same fate in the hands of criminals. To single out Christians as victims of genocide is not only misleading, but an insult to every family that has lost loved ones in this senseless violence.
The Association of Resident Doctors, Federal Capital Territory Administration Chapter, says it has confirmed partial payment of outstanding salary arrears and allowances owed to its members, but insists its indefinite strike will continue. The FCT chapter president, George Ebong, said in a statement that 28 doctors recently received long overdue salary arrears, while some were paid their medical residency training fund. However, 47 out of the 150 doctors are still awaiting payment. Ebong commended FCT Minister Nyesom Wike for initiating the payment process, but stressed that resolving only part of their demands is not enough to end the strike. He noted that the association remains open to dialogue and continues to engage with the National Assembly and the Federal Capital Territory Administration's management to address all pending issues. The resident doctors joined the nationwide indefinite strike declared by the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors on November the 1st over unmet welfare and funding demands. 2 people, including a tricycle driver and a passenger, were killed on Wednesday after a train traveling from Bukuru to Jos crashed a tricycle at Foto Teki Abattoir Junction in Jos South local government area of Plateau State. 2 other passengers sustained serious injuries and were rushed to the hospital. The incident sparked outrage among residents who began pelting the train with stones before it quickly left the scene. Eyewitnesses said the accident occurred around 10 in the morning and blamed the absence of railway crossing guard for the tragedy. They alleged that officials were often missing from the post, leaving vehicles and pedestrians unprotected. However, a spokesperson of the Jos railway station, Adam Abdullahi, denied the claims, insisting that a railway guard had tried to stop the tricycle driver, who ignored warnings and attempted to cross before the train arrived. He said the driver's refusal to stop led to the fatal collision. Meanwhile, outrage has erupted in Ogoniland after the overhead water tank at the newly commissioned Gwara Water Project in Kana local government area of River State collapsed just 4 days after inauguration. The project, executed by the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project under the Federal Ministry of Environment, was part of the ongoing Ogoni Cleanup Initiative aimed at providing clean water to the Gwara community. Eyewitnesses said the structure suddenly gave way, sending the tank crashing to the ground. No casualties were reported, but residents expressed disappointment over the quality of work and demanded accountability. Community members have called on the Tinubu administration and the association and the the organization of that does the remediation to investigate the incident, review construction standards, and rebuild the facility, warning that the collapse threatens the long-awaited promise of safe drinking water for the region. In another development, residents of the Ilobu in Osun State have appealed to both the federal and the state governments to come to their aid of persons affected by the recent communal clash in the town. They lamented that many of the displaced residents remain homeless, while those whose businesses were destroyed have been rendered jobless. TUS TV's Hamid Oyegbade reports.
Though peace has gradually returned to Ilobu town in Irekwadun local government area of Osun State, the community is yet to recover from the devastating impact of the conflict. Several businesses were destroyed, many lives were lost, and numerous residents were displaced after their homes were set ablaze during the crisis. Some of the affected residents said they are slowly rebuilding their lives and returning to their homes.
Some are still a refugee in their hometown. What do I mean? Those buildings that were burned down. I mean, most people that are residing, that have their building very in the border area, border with Ifon, border with Erin. Those buildings were raised down.
They cannot go back to their home, they cannot go back to their farm. You have people that they have burned down their farm. There's no way for them to to survive. So those are the things that we would like government to please come to our aid, so that those people that are displaced will go back to their houses and see what they can do to make them feel better again.
Meanwhile, the umbrella body of all indigenous groups in the town, the Ilobu Ashake Development Union, has distributed palliatives to some of the affected persons. The president of the union, Olufemi Salako, called on government to support the ongoing resettlement efforts.
During the crisis, businesses were destroyed, businesses were burnt, houses were burnt, people were displaced. And the more the pain lingers, the more it's difficult to move on. And we are trusting in government to come in and help us, particularly in resettling those whose homes were destroyed, whose businesses were destroyed, so that they can get back on their feet and the scar and the pain of all the crisis can actually be forgotten. And that's our appeal to government. During the crisis, NEMA came in to help us give some relief materials immediately. But now we've gone beyond that, we're in the rebuilding stage. So we need the help of the government.
The residents of Ilobu also urged government and security agencies to ensure lasting peace in the area. Amid Oyegbade, Trust TV News, Osogbo.
The Federal High Court in Abuja has for the fourth time given detained IPOD leader Nnamdi Kanu another opportunity to defend himself against terrorism charges filed by the federal government. Justice James Omotosho adjourned the case till November the 7th after Kanu again refused to open his defense, insisting that the charges against him were invalid and based on a repealed law. The court had earlier dismissed Nnamdi Kanu's no-case submission, ruling that a prima facie case had been established. However, he repeatedly declined to proceed, arguing that the prosecution failed to amend the charge as directed by the Supreme Court. Nnamdi Kanu told the court he was willing to open his defense but needed time to consult with his legal team. Justice Omotosho said the adjournment is granted in the interest of justice, giving Kanu what he described as one more opportunity to present his defense. Dental students at the University of Jos on Wednesday staged a protest over the non-accreditation of their program by the National Universities Commission, NUC, 10 years after its commencement. The students, who marched peacefully to the university's permanent site, accused the management of failing to disclose the accreditation status of the program before admitting them, carrying placards with inscriptions such as "Our future is on hold," "Accredit us today," and "We want accreditation." The protesters demanded immediate action from the university authorities. President of the Jos University Dental Student Association, Johnson Bisani, said the protest is a result of years of frustration and uncertainty that had left multiple sets of students stranded. Bisani added that the students had repeatedly engaged the university management, including the Vice-Chancellor and the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, but received only assurances that accreditation is in progress.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever.
To politics now, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has restated its commitment to peace, unity, and the protection of Nigeria's democracy, following a court ruling that halted its planned national convention. Speaking at a news conference in Lagos, PDP leader and former Deputy National Chairman Olabode George described the October 31st judgment by Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court, Abuja, as a recipe for anarchy and judicial interference in the party's internal affairs. Olabode George said the ruling contradicted the Supreme Court's stance that party leadership matters are not justiciable, warning that such decisions could destabilize democracy. George also alleged that security operatives acting in concert with a minority faction invaded the PDP National Secretariat in Abuja following the judgment, an act he described as unlawful. George urged the federal government and security agencies to investigate the incident and cautioned against what he called judicial and political recklessness. reminiscent of past regional crises. He reaffirmed that the PDP will continue to operate within the law despite provocations, accusing the ruling party of using state institutions to weaken the opposition instead of addressing insecurity and economic hardships. President Bola Tinubu has requested the House of Representatives to approve a fresh 1.15 trillion naira borrowing from the domestic debt market to finance the deficit in the 2025 budget. The request was presented on Wednesday by Deputy Speaker Benjamin Kalu after a closed-door executive session that lasted more than 2 hours. In the communication, Tinubu explained that the National Assembly's upward review of the 2025 budget to 59.99 trillion naira created an unfunded deficit of about 1.15 trillion naira, necessitating the additional borrowing in accordance with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. The executive communication was referred to the House Committee on Aids, Loans and Debt Management for further legislative action. The House subsequently adjourned plenary until next Tuesday.
The Right Honourable Speaker of the House of Representatives may wish to note that the National Assembly passed a budget of 59.99 trillion naira, an increase of 5.25 trillion naira from the 49.74 trillion naira budget proposed by the executive. This increase created a budget deficit of 14.10 trillion naira. However, the proposed borrowing approved in the budget was 12.95 trillion naira, which occasioned an unfunded deficit of 1,462,863,321 naira 39 kobo.
Tobacco use causes between 16,000 and 30,000 deaths in Nigeria each year, according to the World Health Organization and the national health authorities, mostly from the heart diseases, stroke, and cancer. In response, Nigeria's tobacco tax policy is once again under review as the country prepares to roll out a new excise regime in January 2025. The move is part of the ongoing efforts to align with global health standards and reduce the affordability of tobacco products. Neil Samson reports.
Over 18 billion cigarettes are sold in Nigeria annually, costing Nigerians more than $931 million. Since 2018, the country has implemented a mixed excise tax system on tobacco products, in line with recommendations from the World Health Organization's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, particularly Article 6, which advocates higher taxes to discourage tobacco use. The policy was last reviewed in 2022, and the current regime is set to expire in June 2025. However, discussions are already underway for a new framework expected to take effect early next year.
The tobacco companies have continued through all sorts of forms to create chaos, health chaos for Nigerians. They enter movies, and encouraging, pin makers to be smoking. But thank God, CAPA, an organization that is also, holding corporate institutions accountable, have worked with the government to ensure that the use of consumption of tobacco, especially the cigarette and the weed and shisha, are discouraged in our PIMS.
When you use tobacco, number one, people become addict. at every point in time, they want to use their resources on tobacco. So in a way, it takes away what I call the source of livelihood from people, as well. Because when you are addicted to a particular substance or a product like tobacco, you want to take it every now and then, and in a way, it's taking away your resources.
Meanwhile, Trust TV crew took to the streets of the Federal Capital Territory to gauge public opinion, including that of smokers, on whether higher tobacco prices would discourage consumption.
But you look around now, it's not everybody that smoke colos, because colos too cost. It's people that have money smoke colos. If you don't have money to smoke colos, you use the money and smoke cigar with it. As you buy half 100 naira, you buy 3 cigar or 4 cigar now, 100 naira. But cigar reach 100 naira now. You know if you carry 100 naira, go buy 1 stick of cigar. If cigar reach 100 naira, I don't feel smoke cigar again.
Even you reach 300, I go stop her. I dey gulo Joshua sell water. Even that water money, na cigar they carry am. Yesterday I smoke cigar 700 naira. That my pure water I dey sell am 2,205 after my business money. So may them try stop cigar, may they increase the money, may person no fit buy at all.
Everybody can smoke cigar. You know, cigar is like for fun. But some people are taking it as sex, which I can't justify it.
Health experts warn that tobacco remains a major public health challenge, causing cancers, heart disease, lung illness, and pregnancy complications, while secondhand smokers endangers non-smokers. Economically, tobacco use drains healthcare budgets, reduces productivity, and burdens households. Socially, it fuels addiction, harms young people, and damages the environment, making it one of the world's leading preventable killers. Well, Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
From health to the economy, Nigeria's 36 states are under pressure to raise their internally generated revenue as the federal government allocations shrink and debts rise. While Lagos, Rivers, and Ogun states continue to lead the pack, most states still rely heavily on federal government for survival. As Abdullah Ahmed examines how states earn, spend, and why widening revenue gaps threaten basic services and governance across the country. Here is his report.
Nigeria's widening gap in internally generated revenue has again raised tough questions about the country's fiscal health. The 2024 report by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that Lagos alone brought in 1.26 trillion naira, nearly 1/3 of Nigeria's total 3.6 trillion naira IGR, and well over half of its own budget. Behind Lagos are Rivers with 317.3 billion naira. The Federal Capital Territory is next with 282.3 billion naira. Ogun with 194.9 billion naira, and Enugu with 180.5 billion naira. Together, they account for more than a quarter of all subnational revenues. The rest of the country lags far behind, with many states generating less than 15 billion naira a year, barely enough to stay afloat. This gulf reflects the structural weakness of Nigeria's federal system and its over-reliance on oil revenue through the Federation Account Allocation Committee. More than 32 states in the country depend on FAC for over half of their income, while 14 rely on it for more than 70%. Such heavy dependence exposes them to external shocks and makes talk of creating new states purely out of political convenience hard to justify. If existing states cannot fund themselves, splitting them further only spreads scarcity. Only Lagos and Rivers can fully operate without federal allocation. Most others struggle to pay salaries without Federation account bailout. About 80% of IGR nationwide comes from taxes, mainly pay-as-you-earn deductions, which depend on formal jobs that are scarce across much of the country. In many states, corruption, wasteful projects, and poor revenue management continue to drain public funds. Gombe, for example, spent 43.1 billion naira on office renovations in 2023, but only 12 billion naira on health. 10 states, including Osun, Ekiti, and Ebonyi, spent less than 9% of their budgets on healthcare in 2024, even as poverty and service delivery worsened. This issue is not that Nigeria has too few states, but that most existing ones are poorly managed and fiscally weak. Creating new ones will not solve that. It will multiply the problems. New states would be even more dependent on federal allocations and add more layers of bureaucracy, governors, assemblies, ministries, without creating real value. State creation has become a tool for political reward, not economic development, and it risks deepening inefficiency as well as corruption. What Nigeria needs, according to most experts, is not more lines on the map, but more productivity. States must focus on building their own economies through technology-driven tax systems, investment in agriculture and minerals, and transparent management of limited resources. Fiscal federalism must go beyond theory. In the United States, for example, states do not necessarily queue for federal allocations. California's $4.1 trillion GDP is larger than most of the African economies. Nigerian states can achieve similar progress if they prioritize production over politics and consumption. Nigeria does not need new states, according to most. It needs current ones to work, generate revenue, create jobs, and deliver quality services. Until that happens, any talk of creating more states is nothing more than multiplying failure.
Thank you, Abdullahi. Residents of Lagos State have expressed support for President Tinubu's decision on approval of a 15% import duty on petrol and diesel imports. They are, however, calling on the authorities to take proactive measures to sanction all investors who are granted refinery licenses but have yet to commence operations, insisting that dependence on fuel importation must stop. TUS TV's Victoria Tokolo has more.
A fresh round of fuel price increases may be imminent as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the 15% ad valorem import duty on petrol and diesel. Petroleum experts warn that the new import duty could push fuel prices above 1,000 naira per litre in major cities across the country. Based on current market projections, petrol prices could rise from the current 950 naira to 960 naira per litre to about 1,050 naira, while diesel prices may climb to between 1,120 naira and 1,140 naira per litre in cities like Lagos and Abuja. Despite the looming hike, many Lagos residents believe the move is a positive step that will encourage local refining and reduce Nigeria's dependence on imported fuel. They argue that Nigeria, being richly endowed with crude oil and rather raw materials for petroleum products, should be self-sufficient in refining rather than importing fuel. Residents also urge the federal government to sanction individuals and companies who were issued refinery licenses but have failed to build or begin operations, stressing that such negligence undermines national development. They cited the Dangote refinery as an example of a functional model that is already contributing significantly to employment and economic growth in the country.
Bereft of the suffering of the people. That means the government, they are not even aware, or if they are aware, they are just saying, yes, it seems not to be concerned about the welfare of the citizens. You know, we are already burdened by too much pressure from so many unpalatable and draconian policies and laws of this government and action of the government. You know, I want to appeal to the government that they should see reasons. They are there for the masses. They are not there for themselves, whatever. They are there for the masses. So they want to see reasons. And whatever, if I'm quite sure that this thing has not been implemented, so they have to have a rethink.
With due respect to the so-called experts, I don't subscribe to that their opinion, because
since we have crude oil, we should be encouraged to produce, not encouraged to import. We have somebody who is producing petroleum products and diesel products. We should encourage him. And government has given license to companies that claim that they want to establish refineries. Those ones should be encouraged. We should stop anything importing finished product of petroleum to the country. Are we paying according to what we should pay? If the government decides to increase, that is so be it. That's it. Everybody should check his or herself. That's it. That's how this country can move.
First of all, what's the problem? What's the business the Nigeria have with fuel importation? A country that have fuel, they have fuel, they have crude oil, they have about 3 refineries, and the other even Dangote refineries there. What business do we have with fuel importation? Does it mean that we cannot produce fuel we can use through our crude oil? Payment of 15% import duty or whatever they call it is to encourage importation.
The residents further appealed to the federal government and petroleum experts to prioritize the full rehabilitation and operation of Nigeria's 3 major refineries in Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna. They believe that once these refineries are fully operational, fuel importation will no longer be necessary and the nation's economy will experience substantial growth.
You're watching News Hour on Trust TV. Coming up after the break, House of Representatives moves to boost women's representation in politics. We'll have more news when we return. Don't go away. Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Trust TV and we are giving you News Hour. Let's take a look at our top stories again. Contractors go bankrupt over 3 trillion naira federal debt. And federal government blames foreign lobbies for fueling Christian genocide narrative. Moving on to more stories now, the House of Representatives has intensified efforts to promote gender inclusion and governance, rallying support for the Constitution Alteration Bill that seeks to create special reserved seats for women in the National and State Houses of Assembly. The House Committee on Youth in Parliament will lead the campaign for the bill following its inauguration at an interactive session in Abuja, organized by the Legislative Advocacy Committee on the Reserved Seats for Women Bill. The report.
Chaired by Representative Olamijuwonlo Alao Akala, the committee is mandated to mobilize lawmakers, sensitize the public, and galvanize broad-based support for the proposed legislation. The bill, initiated under the leadership of Speaker Abbas Tajuddin, proposes the creation of 108 additional elective seats exclusively for women across federal and state legislatures, aimed at addressing the persistent gender imbalance in political representation. Chairman of the House Committee on Women Affairs, Kafilat Ogbara, described the proposal as a significant step towards national development and the strengthening of Nigerian democratic image globally.
In line of this, I want to tell you that the young parliamentarians of the 10th Assembly will support this bill. My committee, which is the Committee of Young Parliamentarians, which was created by the leave of the Speaker, Mr. Tajuddin Abbas, Our Excellency the Yazazal, a man whose vision has created and is supporting this bill, because if not for him, I will not be seated here. So I know he's fully behind this bill. So we also appreciate him for making this a reality in our time.
But we are very positive and very optimistic that the only time that we have is now. We have the political will. We know that for a bill like this to pass through, we only need the political will. We have the political will from the executive arm of government. We know that Mr. President, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is a gender-sensitive president.
Stakeholders and civil society groups at the section expressed confidence that the political will demonstrated by the Speaker and the House leadership would ensure the bill's passage.
Now the younger parliamentarians are beneficiaries of the not too young to run. What we are talking about, and these are our children. And so we are doing the same thing now in getting the bills for the special seats bill passed, is for our children to also contest. and come into the parliament, because what we have right now is a male parliament across board. And so we are really excited that they have endorsed it.
50% of the voting population, 50% of the Nigerian population we are talking about. And in this country, since independence, we have initiated a lot of initiative to create equity, to create inclusiveness, and one of it is that of the quota system she talked about. Why did we introduce the quota system? It's to create an enabling environment for all shapes and every segment to be equally represented.
They are hopeful that when passed, the bill will further reduce the gaps in female representation in politics.
Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum has distributed 62 patrol trucks to security agencies in Maiduguri and other parts of the state. The governor urged the benefiting security agencies to utilize the vehicles for the protection of lives and property in vulnerable communities. While appreciating the federal government's effort in the area of security, Governor Zulum assured of continuous support for logistics and other needs for security agencies and paramilitary groups to rid the state of insurgents.
As spiritual, or I can say the continuation of our efforts to support security apparatus in the state with the equipment and logistics needed for them to function effectively. This morning, we are here to distribute vehicles. The numbers of the vehicles that we are distributing this morning amount to 62 Toyota units. Out of these 62 Toyota units, 30 will be given to civilian jet here.
We thank you very much immensely, and we assure you that the vehicles will be judiciously used, and assure you that crime rate in the state will be combated accordingly. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
The head of the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF office in Bauchi, Nuzad Rafik, has called on the governments of Adamawa and Taraba states to either sustain or enhance their funding for social sector projects, aligning with global trends. The appeal was made during the 2025 review consultation meeting held in Ola, which brought together UNICEF and its partners, particularly representatives from the Adamawa and Taraba state governments. Trust TV's Gibson Swadigo now reports.
The partners associated with UNICEF from Adamawa and Taraba came together to assess their accomplishments for 2025 and identify areas needing improvement. The stakeholders span various sectors, including health, nutrition, water, sanitation and hygiene, WASH, education, and child protection, where UNICEF has made substantial financial investments. During the review meeting, success stories from the participating states were presented, followed by inquiries and contributions from all sectors to better prepare for the projects scheduled for 2026. Mozart Rafik, the chief of UNICEF's Bauchi Field Office, emphasized the necessity for increased financial support for social sectors to build upon the successes achieved through their collaborative efforts.
Now government should take more leadership and more ownership in terms of financing these social sectors, because UNICEF is always here to provide technical support and whatever funds we can leverage from donors. But the main leadership in terms of financing these sectors, especially health, education, child protection, WASH and sanitation, these are the basic responsibilities of the government. And more funds should come from the government during this year, and UNICEF remain here to provide technical support in terms of strategic interventions, planning, implementation, monitoring together, and getting results for the children.
Counterparts from Adamawa and Taraba, the primary stakeholders in these projects, expressed their appreciation for the strong partnership with UNICEF across all sectors. They highlighted the successes attained as a direct result of this collaboration and expressed their commitment to further enhancing these efforts for the benefit of their respective states.
It's an opportunity for every stakeholder in the space to come and meet. And my happiness about the review meeting is that it's not only targeting one area or one sector. It's a multi-sectoral review meeting where all agencies are in place, and it's an opportunity for UNICEF to also take stock of its support.
In health, there are so many things. Area of immunization, UNICEF is in the forefront. And believe you me, before now we used to have a lot of children dying because of vaccine-preventable diseases such as measles, commonly called Bakundore in Hausa, polio and other infections, viral infections to be specific. And UNICEF is also in the forefront in supporting these states.
The review and consultation meeting was facilitated by the Adamawa State Planning Commission. Gibson Soadgo, Trust TV News, Yola.
The World Customs Organization, WCO, and the African Continental Free Trade Area are stepping up collaboration to promote seamless and efficient trade across the continent. At a strategic meeting held at the African Continental Free Trade Area headquarters in Accra, Ghana, executives from both organizations discussed key challenges restricting trade among African nations. Habibat Ajayi reports.
Despite steady growth in intra-African trade, experts say the continent continues to struggle with numerous obstacles that hindered economic expansion and limit opportunities for millions. Persistent infrastructural deficit, cumbersome border procedures, and weak logistical networks remain major impediments to realizing Africans' full trade potential. To address these challenges, the World Customs Organization is finalizing plans for the inaugural Customs Pact Initiative, a high-level forum for heads of customs, economic regulators, and trade operators scheduled to take place in Abuja, Nigeria. At the heart of the initiative is collaboration with the AFCFTA Secretariat aimed at strengthening synergy among Africans' trade and customs institutions. The chairman of the World Customs Organization and the Secretary General of the AFCFTA emphasized the need for collective action to enhance trade facilitation, promote transparency, and harmonize customs processes across member states.
And the objective is a singular objective, and that is boosting intra-Africa trade and enabling economic growth of our continent through trade, and trade being one of the drivers of Africa's development. And so the partnership that exists, the structure that exists, all of these initiatives are aimed at boosting intra-Africa trade. The implementation of the AFCFTA is not for ministers of trade, for the Secretariat, for the private sector, individually and alone. It is a collective responsibility for all of us, including the private sector.
Customs now need to take the front role in addressing the issue of deficiencies in our trade data across the continent. This is a challenge that I have accepted to play working with other colleagues. And secondly, the existing structure which the Secretariat has created, bringing together all heads of customs administration, also needed to be strengthened so that once we institutionalize Customs Pact, we will be able to situate it and let it operate within the existing structure which the Secretariat has created.
Both leaders also highlighted plans to digitalize certificates of origin, streamline payment systems, and expand capacity building programs to help small and medium-scale enterprises, SMEs, fully participate in cross-border trade. Habibat Ajayi, Trust TV News, Abuja.
In business, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, says the country's crude oil production has risen to 1.7 million barrels per day, with plans to hit 2 million barrels per day by 2027 and 3 million barrels per day in the long term. Group Chief Executive Officer Bashir Ojulari disclosed it during the Energy Talk session at the Abu Dhabi International Petroleum Exhibition and Conference, ABPEC 2025, and the UAE. Ojulari said the growth is driven by renewed partnerships with international and local oil firms, new government incentives, and expanded gas and energy projects. He reaffirmed NNPCL's goal of attracting $60 billion in new investments by 2030 through collaboration with OPEC members, African oil companies, and global financial institutions. Ojulari also highlighted major infrastructure projects, including the near completion of the Ajaokuta, Kaduna, Kano, and Obiafu-Obirekom urban pipelines, as well as the rollout of the cleaner energy solutions on the presidential CNG initiative. Described Nigeria as a key player in Africa's energy future and said under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's renewed hope agenda, NNPCL aims to transform the nation into a diversified, investment-driven energy hub. When I go for sports with Joseph Peter.
Remo Stars Football Club has moved to clarify the status of their head coach, Daniel Ogumodede, amidst swirling rumors of his alleged resignation. In a statement released on social media, the club emphasized that Ogumodede remains an integral part of their technical crew and will continue to lead the team. The statement explained that Ogumodede is currently attending the CAF B coaching course in Abuja, a vital part of his continuous professional development. This commitment reflects his dedication to personal and technical growth, ensuring he stays updated with the latest coaching methodologies. Beyond his club responsibilities, Ogumodede will also continue his national assignment with the Nigerian national team. The Super Eagles are gearing up for crucial matches, including the FIFA World Cup African playoffs, the potential Intercontinental playoff, and the Africa Cup of Nations later this year. Ogumodede's expertise and experience will be available in the high-stakes games. The management of Raymond Stars expressed their unwavering support for Ogumodede, highlighting the importance of collective national support and dedication to the success of Nigerian football. They emphasized that Ogumodede remains a valued and vital member of the Raymond Stars family, eagerly looking forward to his successful completion of the national and personal engagements. Ogumodede's appointment as head coach has been marked by significant achievements, including guiding Raymond Stars to their first ever Nigerian Premier Football League NPFL title earlier this year. His coaching philosophy, known as Ijaball, emphasized a proactive possession style of football which has garnered attention and admiration in the football community. With his experience as an assistant coach with the Super Eagles and now leading Remo Stars, Ogumodede's future in Nigerian football looks bright. The club's reaffirmation of his position sent a strong message of confidence in his abilities to lead the team to greater heights. That's Sport News. I'm Joseph Peter.
We conclude tonight's bulletin, and we have come to the end of News Hour on Trust TV. Do not forget to follow us across all our media platforms and join our YouTube live stream for more news. Thank you for watching. I'm Muhammad Kuda Abubakar. Good night.